Hello, I have two poems that I'm going to read, and there's a story that goes along, sort of goes along with both of them. But I grew up in Oregon, and our family grave plot is the top of Larch Mountain, which, if anyone's ever been to Oregon, you may be familiar with Multnomah Falls, which is a beautiful waterfall that's oftentimes featured in pictures just when they're displaying spectacular waterfalls in the world. And Larch Mountain is at the top of, very top of this mountain, and our family used to enjoy many lovely picnics there. And so my father's ashes were there, my grandparents' ashes are there, mine will someday be there. And last May, our family gathered and to disperse my mother's ashes up there. And when we were driving to Larch Mountain, who knew that there were two Larch Mountains, one on the Oregon side of the Columbia River and one on the Washington side of the Columbia River. So most of us drove to the Larch Mountain in Oregon, and then some others drove were heading towards the Larch Mountain in Washington when suddenly they realized, they came to the bridge and realized that they were probably not in the right spot. And then driving up to Larch Mountain, this was end of May, the road was closed. And there was, because of snow. And that is very, very unusual, at least when I was growing up, to have snow in late May. This is not an extremely high mountain that has a snow cap. So it was very, very unusual. So we were trudging in. We were like, oh, what are we going to do? You know, half the family's going to Washington, half of us is here. There's all this snow. We don't even know exactly how far we have to walk in. We're not really prepared. But anyway, we walked in. We did walk in through the snow, and there we spotted, someone spotted like 3 or 4 little trillium flowers. And my mother was a huge gardener. She loved flowers. She loved gardening. And someone remembered that there was a poem by Louise Gluck, who was the 2020 Nobel Prize winner for literature. And they whipped it out on their phone and read it, and it just was so appropriate for the situation, and was also really made it a very meaningful experience for us. So this poem is called Trillium by Louise Gluck. When I woke up, I was in a forest. The dark seemed natural. The sky through the pine trees thick with many lights. I knew nothing. I could do nothing but see. And as I watched, all the lights of heaven faded to make a single thing, a fire burning through the cool firs. Then it wasn't possible any longer to stare at heaven and not be destroyed. Are there souls that need death's presence as I require protection? I think if I speak long enough, I will answer that question. I will see whatever they see, a ladder reaching through the firs, whatever calls them to exchange their lives. Think what I understand already. I woke up ignorant in a forest only a moment ago. I didn't know my voice, if one were given to me, would be so full of grief. My sentences like cries strung together. I didn't even know I felt grief until that word came, until I felt rain streaming from me. And the second poem is entitled Gardeners, and it's by Amanda Grace Shue for Carol Hochweber Ross, September 26, 1929 to February 15, 2023. God in heaven sits my grandma down with her nemesis, the plump black bunny, fatted up for Easter Sunday, then turned loose to feast gleefully on Beaverton backyards, and says, "Really, Carol, they were just petunias." Eden's landscaping is immaculate. Species long since gone from earth grow all over. Heart-seeded siliphium, St. Helena olive, dawn of time redwood, and peregrine pine, all but the stubbornness of the ginkgos. Hole, yellowwood, and greenwood incognita underfoot. But this corner of paradise is a replica of her own garden, full of ferns, hydrangeas, lavender, a cherry tree at its center, a ceramic statuette of St. Francis on the perimeter, looking out for little creatures. The bunny's nose twitches. He eyes the petunia. Grandma eyes the bunny. Finally, she puts one hand on her hip, looks God right in the eye, and says, "Well, which one of us sent Adam and Eve packing for eating something they weren't supposed to eat?" God laughs, and Grandma laughs, and here below, I laugh in memory of my indomitable foremother and the black bunny I never got to see. Just Grandma in her fuzzy pink bathrobe, guarding the garden, hose in her hands. And this poem was written by my daughter, and it is going to be published in May, along with several other poems. She is the featured poet in Sequestrum Poetry Magazine in their May edition. So if anyone enjoys poetry and would like to read more, that's my proud mama boast.